Lagi sekali yang bersemangat merdeka.
Because nobody, no group of men have got the will, have got the capacity to do more for this country.
You see, the whole of that adult life.
And he had the courage to say, no, we change course.
Those who believe that when I have left the government as Prime Minister, that I've gone into permanent retirement, really should have their heads examined.
This is my country. This is my life. This is my people. You will trample over us, over our dead bodies. We dug our toes in. We built a nation. Singapore is a meritocracy, and these men have risen to the top by their own merit, their hard work and high performance. If all the 300 were to crash in one jumbo jet, then Singapore will disintegrate. I make no apologies for collecting the most talented team I could find. Without them, none of you would be enjoying life today in Singapore. I say this without any compunction.
One lesson which I learned from RI has been important in the way in which I subsequently governed Singapore. I believed completely in the meritocratic system. I'm not interested who your father or mother is, what station in life, what religion, what language, how good they are in life, how well they will perform, depends upon character and how much they give back to society. I'm a fortunate product of the RI system. I commend all those who have come after me to uphold the fine traditions of meritocracy, not only in their school lives, but in whatever fields of endeavor they subsequently find themselves pursuing.
I've watched the change over the last 20 years. And on the whole, it's been a change for the better. 10 years ago, when we first had these New Year gatherings, it was only the less successful who turned up. The more successful celebrated by themselves. I'm happy that in the last few years, perhaps with the help of this new community center, the successful have also decided it's not a bad thing to come and meet and celebrate together. And this is symbolic of what we must do for the whole of Singapore. We rise together, we share the good things together. Not equally, because then it will be impossible. The more successful is not going to strive just to give all his benefits to his neighbor. But it must not be that unequal that they celebrate separately.
Singapore has a good chance of continuing to be a successful nation if the next generation understands the ingredients of success. First, a stable political situation. Second, a well-educated and trained population ready to work and pay for what it wants. Third, the ability to attract higher-level technology industries. Fourth, better standards of life in a cleaner, greener, and more gracious Singapore. Fifth, the competence of our defense forces to ensure that no one believes he can just walk in and take over what we have created and built. The burden of present planning and implementation rests on the shoulders of some 300 key persons. They include key men in the PAP, MPs and cadres who mobilize mass support and explain the need for policies even when they are temporarily inconvenient or against sectional interests. Outstanding men in the civil service, the police, the armed forces, chairmen of statutory boards and their top administrators. These men come from poor and middle-class homes. They come from different language schools. Singapore is a meritocracy, and these men have risen to the top by their own merit, their hard work and high performance. Together, they are a closely knit and well-coordinated hard core. If all the 300 were to crash in one jumbo jet, then Singapore will disintegrate. That shows how small the base is for your leadership in politics, economics, and security. We have to, and we will, enlarge this base, enlarging the number of key digits.
Our experience of crises in the 1950s and 60s made Singaporeans acutely aware of the vulnerability and the fragility of the society. Fortunately, we are a pragmatic people, and so we set out to build on our common interests and to mute our differences. The government has broadened the basis of the institutions of government as widely as practicable. Systematically, we rejuvenated the leadership in government, in parliament, by recruiting and co-opting the best, regardless of differences in political outlook. We have ensured also a continuing flow of trained and able men into the machinery of the state. There is no mystique surrounding political leaders, members of parliament, civil servants, SAF, police officers, or leading professionals. We have no traditional ruling class. Our right to govern is based on merit, and we have to show that we are manifestly qualified to govern because of our abilities, our training, our character, our ability to deliver the goods, that we exercise power for the common good. Fortunately, there are sufficient common features in our background for the top to share core values. With the younger generation, the common features are greater because all have gone through the same schools and universities and national service. Our open system of selecting men for office or jobs based on their ability and performance is the basis for legitimacy. Our system of open appraisal for promotions in the public service has gained respect and acceptance. We have panels of 3 or more assessors who know the persons they have, some of whom must have known the persons who are coming up for assessment. And they are able to identify and rank talent and ability and character and ensure the promotion of the best. The result is everybody in Singapore knows that those present here tonight are not here because of their birth or parent's status. Each has worked and deserved his position. We have to jealously guard and preserve the system. Integrity has been and is the hallmark of the Singapore establishment.
I make no apologies for collecting the most talented team I could find. Without them, none of you would be enjoying life today in Singapore, including the reporters up there. I say this without any compunction. Who pays for all this? A Singapore economy which has been so finely tuned that it is able to take advantage of every opportunity that comes our way. This is a demanding electorate. Everybody strives to get up to the highest he can of the education ladder. And he wants somebody who is better than him to represent him. He doesn't want somebody he can talk down to. The Prime Minister is already 53, the Deputy Prime Minister is 43. This team will not last 2 election terms without considerable infusions of fresh blood. Three ministers have got 2 ministries each. And the ministers need 15 MOSs as backups, and they haven't got it. They only got 7. And they need to be recruited in order that they learn on the job and become part of a team. If our solutions, and I believe this one is a realistic solution and a sound one, when it works in 5 to 10 years, the World Bank will again give us a citation, as they did this year. And let me read what they said. Not surprisingly, Singapore, which is widely perceived to have the region's most competent and upright bureaucracy, pays its bureaucrats best. They are saying, yes, it works. I am pitting my judgment after 40 years in politics, and I've been in this chamber since 1955, against all the arguments on the other side. I say this is necessary for Singapore. I say face up to the facts, get a good generation in, get the best of this generation. You don't get cited because you are conventional, you follow other people. You become a model because you went against conventional wisdom and proved that they were wrong and you are right. And if we can keep honest, competent government, never mind about its being brilliant, that is a tremendous achievement. I have grappled with this problem for over 30 years. I had argued this question of ministerial salaries when I was in the opposition in 1955-56, 45 years ago. I then urged the Chief Minister of the day, David Marshall, to be realistic. His monthly salary then was a princely sum of $3,500, when as a leading lawyer, he was making $10,000 to $20,000 a month. I recommended a realistic pay appropriate to his earnings. But he didn't have the political strength to do it, and he left it at $3,500. So it remained until I developed sufficient political standing to be able to tackle the question and raise ministerial salaries in the 1970s, when the economy had taken off. The issue is a simple one: whether the public sector
should adopt the market rate. Big corporations give their top CEOs stock options worth multi-millions to attract the best. When they fail, they are out. Procter & Gamble had 2 bad quarters and the CEO resigned. And they look for another one. This government has raised Singapore's per capita GDP from third world to first world levels. 1959, per capita $1,300 when I first took office. 1990, 30 years later, when I stepped down, $22,000. $22,000 from 1,300. 10 years later, after Prime Minister Goh took over, there's now $37,000. I mean, sit down, ask yourself, was that doing what comes naturally? What needs to be done to achieve that? A working system, good policies, anticipating problems before they hit you. See it in proportion to what is at stake.
I think our biggest challenge, and not just over the next decade, but over the next few decades, is to maintain the kind of growth, the kind of uplift of not just the material well-being of the population, but also its cultural standards and its civilized way of living. I was given notice of this question, so I thought it would be useful if I did a comparison between ourselves and our immediate neighbors. Per capita, according to the World Bank, in 1965, when it became independent, we were $512 per capita. Malaysia was 335, Philippines 183, Thailand 136, Vietnam and Indonesia not available. By 2010, both the World Bank estimates Singapore to have reached a per capita of 43,324, Malaysia 8,500, Indonesia 3,040, Philippines 2,130, Thailand 4,680, Vietnam 1,172. Now what is the reason? First, because we have had, since 1965, an undivided society, solidly behind a meritocratic system, pushing for higher standards of education, higher standards of performance, and meritocratic at every level. So the best people took over the best jobs. What will change? First, a political divide, which has already happened. But if that political divide remains a political divide and not a national divide, where national issues are concerned, then the impact on our growth will not be very much. But if the political divide leads to a national divide, and you have constant bickering, as you do have in, say, America between Democrats and Republicans, or Britain between conservatives and Labour, or France, or Germany, then I think we become just another ordinary country with the same problems. So my worry about the future is whether we'll have the same national solidarity, the same desire to increase educational levels, increase performance, and having the best people in the best jobs, or holding the most important jobs. Once we veer away from that meritocratic system, our performance will drop.
Well, what are the reasons that brought us here? One, good governance, anti-corruption, meritocratic, and pragmatic. Going forward, if you drop out any of those three factors, you will lose your momentum. You've got to stay anti-corruption, clean and above board, promotion and jobs regardless of race, language, or religion, based on merit. And thirdly, as I've said, a fair and share between all races and peoples. The present generation below 35 has grown up used to high economic growth year after year, and they take security and success for granted. And because they believe that all is well, they are less willing to make sacrifices for the benefit of the others in society. And they are more concerned about their individual and family's welfare and success, not the community's or the society's well-being. But this is very dangerous, because things can go terribly wrong, terribly quickly. These people are simply not aware of Singapore's vulnerabilities. All they read about is that Singapore is either number 1 or number 2 as the most competitive country, number 1 or number 2 as a seaport or airport, or has number 1 or number 2 as the airline. And from time to time they complain that we are driving the people too hard, making life too stressful. So why not settle for number 3 or number 4 or number 5? Does it matter? My answer is, yes, it does matter. For if we are not near the top in competitiveness, there is no reason why we should have a seaport at all, or an airport, or an airline. A population base of 3 million, and you run a Boeing fleet that SIA has? There must be something special that made SIA what it is. Indeed, if we are not that something special, why should there be a separate independent Singapore in existence at all? And that is the awful simple truth. When I set out my Singapore dream, I was a young man of 20 plus, working with the unions from 1952, was for a democratic society, keen, vibrant, a united people, who, regardless of race, language, and religion, and those words mean very powerful forces at work. Don't believe it's just 3 words, race, language, and religion. They are deep emotional pulls that tugs you and makes you do things your common sense tells you you should not be doing. A society based on justice and equality, which will achieve happiness, prosperity, and progress for the nation. 30 years ago, my colleagues, younger, more dreamy-eyed, settled the words of our pledge. We did not focus our eyes on our navels, or we would have missed that rainbow in the sky. We pursued that rainbow. And that was how we came to build today's Singapore. For the young, let me tell you, the sky has turned brighter. There's a glorious rainbow that beckons those with the spirit of adventure. And there are rich findings at the end of that rainbow. To the young and to the not so old, I say, look at that horizon. Follow that rainbow. Go ride it. Not all will be rich. Quite a few will find a grain of gold. Dig it out.